What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the market moving forward and talk about some very important levels. Let me just mention that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, so for the overall market right now, we're starting to see some signs of a potential rejection that could be forming. We're going to be looking at some key supports to determine if that's going to be the case. So Tesla is trying to hold very close to this 198 area. We'll have to see if Tesla could hold this or not. If we do fail, we'll easily come down to this imbalance all the way down to 194, followed by even lower levels. So be careful with Tesla. If we do fail to reclaim 198, there's going to be a risk of more downside. Looking at, for instance, the 4-hour time frame, we also rejected off our 20 EMA. So there is a risk of that downside, especially if you end up losing these supports. So just be careful, guys. We're starting to see this kind of like perpetuating throughout the markets. We look at SPY. We're barely holding support at 528, but if we lose that, this could also start dipping. There's once again another sign of potential rejection. So I'll break down more information about this over the next couple of minutes, but I first want to talk about some important data and news about Tesla. So the news is coming out. We're actually seeing some more headlines about how stock futures inch a little bit lower after the S&P 500 had the best day since 2022. So yes, yesterday was a great day for the markets. We pumped quite a bit, only to start dipping the next day. So that just goes to show how much manipulation there is. One day we're pumping, the next day we're dumping, and the market's just all over the place. Now, just note there's not really any major data coming out for today. The next pieces of major data will start coming out on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So the market has some free time for the first time in a while. We don't have to worry too much about data for some time. For more news that's coming out, we're starting to see a big shift right now in the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, and the Nasdaq Composite. Got a very, very nice green day, one of the best we've seen since 2022 yesterday, but now things are shifting to the opposite direction just to start off this day. On top of this, there's been some talk about how there's still a lot of talk about initial jobless claims. The data was decent. The market got a nice reaction, but that is not really lasting so far. On top of this, there's been a lot of talk about how thousands of JP Morgan Chase employees now have a generative AI assistant. Parts of new innovation will help them in a lot of different ways, and it's going to help them for data analysis and all sorts of other things out there. So very, very cool stuff that's coming out. Right now, the market sees about a 50-50 chance between getting a 50 and 25 basis point cut in September. This is more evident after what we saw from the Fed yesterday. We had Barkin giving a speech, and he said the Fed needs more time to do anything. So that's some important news. And then as far as Tesla goes, we have some new claims being made by RBC. They're saying that FSD price cuts would be a critical catalyst for Tesla, and that could present major upside for the stock in their personal opinion. They're basically saying that prices for FSD have jumped quite a bit, at least since March, and now they're saying that if Tesla were to lower the prices, that would be very, very useful and help bring in a lot more revenue. They also believe that Tesla has a $224 price target, which is once again very, very reasonable, and they think that there's going to be a lot more growth if they were to do something like this. So that's something that we're starting to see a lot of news about. We also got the Chinese sales. We did about 46,000 sales in July. Not bad whatsoever. A little bit of a decline, at least during the previous month, but that's completely normal, at least historically. Historically, Julys do see small declines before stronger moves to the upside as we get closer to the end of Q3. So just wanted to call that out. Sales weren't the strongest in China for the month of July, but that's completely normal, at least in terms of our trend. When it comes to their monthly exports, there's a little bit of an increase in exports, however, despite their sales being a little bit down. Monthly exports are going up and they're completely fine for now. So not the worst of pieces of data. Despite the sales kind of decreasing, it's still going to be completely fine. So anyways, going back to the Tesla chart, I just wanted to mention that Tesla is once again showing signs of a potential rejection off this 202 area. So yes, we did manage to break above 200 yesterday, going up to 202, only for us to reject. So this was like a really nice short entry for a lot of shorts out there. And now Tesla's starting to dip. The share price is looking a little bit more bearish now. It looks like it's going to start coming down. So when I say bearish and bullish, I'm not talking about the overall trend. Overall, Tesla's on a bit of a downtrend still. But you guys can see for the short term, for the last week, we're just range bound. We've been going between the very, very high 180s to about 204 to 202. The low 200s to very, very high 180s. We've been going back and forth and back and forth for the past 5 days. So I think that if Tesla were to reclaim 200, get above our 50 EMA, Tesla could push for 202 to 204. If we fail to hold above 198, however, and we end up losing that support, we're at risk of coming all the way down to 194 or so. And if that fails, let's watch 192. If those levels fail us, then we're going all the way back down to the 188 area. So watch those levels very carefully. In my personal opinion, we're looking a little bit more bearish. We are favoring this imbalance fill and more downside into the mid 190s at least, if not lower. So just be careful and watch the levels just for confirmation. For SPY, we're looking a little bit more bearish right now. We have resistance at this 530 area, and we have support currently at 528. If 528 does not hold on SPY, I think we're at risk of coming all the way down to about 525, followed by the 522 to 523 area. I think that SPY is showing weakness. We'll have to see if he holds support and try to rebound, but this is favoring downside, in my personal opinion. We'll have to see if 528 holds, but just know that SPY looks like it's showing signs of a change in direction. Now, if we were to reclaim 531, SPY will turn back to bullish, but that's not looking like the case right now. We'll just have to wait and see, but I just want to note that there's a good chance we're going to be testing 528 flat and possibly even lose it. When you look at the 4-hour time frame, we're also starting to turn right here. We're holding 528 as our 20 EMA, so that's going to be a critical support on SPY. If this breaks, we're going to be falling quite a bit, so watch for that very, very carefully. For a few more, I'm going to be kind of quick now. ES, same thing is going on. We're going to be looking at support around 53.15. If that fails, we'll be looking for a bigger dip. So watch for that as well, especially as we have this bearish divergence. Right over here is a bearish divergence, so be mindful of that. For Nvda, we're turning on the hourly time frame. Watch 104.75 as support and then 104. If we end up losing 104, we're going to be dipping back down to about 100. If we hold, buyers defend it, and we end up holding above 104.75, we could be looking for a rebound for 108. But like I said before, be careful with Nvidia. We approach resistance at 108 already, and we're kind of rejecting a little bit. So there is a risk of it dipping a little bit lower. Just wanted to call that out. Bitcoin pumped all the way up to about 62,500 only to start dipping. We're watch support at 60,400. If that breaks, we're going all the way down to 59,500. So we're barely holding support on Bitcoin. For the QQQ, we have resistance currently around this 452 area and also at 448. We have support currently at 446, not to mention 444. And if that breaks, look for a bigger dip all the way down towards 440. So watch to see if we hold above 444. That's going to be another critical support. If we hold that, we could try to rebound. If we lose 444, there's going to be a bigger dip coming. So watch for that. Aapl, it formed a nice push. We actually attempted to push all the way up to about 215, but then we came short and got a rejection. We still are riding this trend line right over here, so we actually called this out yesterday. I could adjust this just a little bit, so we're still technically trying to ride support like this. But I just want to say that Apple's showing a little weakness now. This wedge is not doing the best of jobs at holding up. So we got to try to hold 211. If that doesn't hold, we're going back down to about 207. We're barely at support on Apple. Let's just hope it holds. If it does hold this, look for a rebound towards this trend line, and we'll see if that breaks or not. But if 211 fails us, we're going to turn bearish, so just be careful. We're barely at support on Apple. The IWM, we're forming a double top-like structure, especially at that 207 area. If we break through 207 or hold above it, I think we could be pushing for 210. If we lose 207, we'll be dipping back down to 205, so just be mindful of that. We are kind of rejecting with the double top, but we'll see if we hold support. There is a risk of 205, in my opinion, nonetheless. Coinbase also has a nice double top. If we break 200, look for 210. If not, we could be looking for a dip back down towards the 185 area, so right about here, if we end up failing to hold above 192. So watch 192. If that fails, look at 195. For Amazon, we have a bearish structure. Look at 165 as support. If that fails us, we're dipping back down to 162, followed by this gap fill around 161. And we have resistance at 167. So we'll see if the cup and handle structure holds or not. We're barely holding 165 as support. If that breaks, we turn bearish. If that holds, we could rebound. But this is, once again, barely at support, so watch 165. Meta was trying to break to the upside. The trend is still technically bullish as we're making higher highs and higher lows. But watch this trend line right over here. We'll just have to see if Meta could hold this. So I'd be looking at the support like this just to see if we hold. We're at support right now. If we lose this trend line, I think that Meta will be dipping back down towards basically not just 500, but all the way down to about 493. And if that breaks, we're going back down to about 488. So watch those supports, at least on Meta for the time being. We got to hold above 500. If not, we're going all the way down to about 498, if not 493. So watch that very carefully on Meta. If we do reclaim 508, this could try to rebound. But so far, like I said, there's some signs of a possible rejection, and we're just barely holding support. So give this some time. And for Microsoft, it's the same thing. Essentially, we're just completely range bound. We need to try to break past 408s to push for 414. If we can't break past 408, look at 402 as supports. If that breaks, we're going all the way back down towards, much lower levels such as 398 or even below that. So watch for that very carefully. For Google, we're just range bound. We're just going back and forth and back and forth. We have support at this 158 zone. The resistance around this 165 area. We've been going back and forth for 5 days, but there is a risk of Google dipping lower. If 160 fails, this will be dipping all the way down to about 158. So I do see a risk of downside for Google. And with that being said, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. As far as Tesla goes, make sure you watch your levels very carefully and just know that we are looking like we're potentially rejecting on Tesla. So I think that there's a risk of it dipping to the mid 190s. If 195 doesn't hold us, there's going to be a bigger dip. So be careful. Just want to give you guys a heads up about that. This has not been crashing. We're just very range bound on Tesla, by the way. So look at this range. As you can see, we're going back and forth and back and forth. So if we do start dipping towards 195 and that fails, look at 192 and 188. But once we get to the high 180s, we could get bought back up again. So there might be a dip coming. So watch your levels and see how things go. Thank you for listening, and peace out.